Hello and welcome. In this video, we are going to build this responsive real estate website with HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Now, the first thing you can see is this nice carousel effect where we can move to the next slide using these buttons here. We can also go to the previous slide using this button here. Then we have this search area where we can search for a property by address, city or state, and we have the search button here where you can click to search for the property. At the top you have this heading here which is find your dream home. Then after that we have our properties for rent where you can search over 2,000 properties to rent from the top agent in the country. We have the various properties here. You can see these nice houses here. We have luxury villa in Las Vegas. Then below that we have popular properties. You can see this nice grid effect here. We have this nice hover effect. When you hover over each of the properties, you can see this nice hover effect. Now below that we have the contact area where you can contact support. We have excellent support here. We have this button to contact support and this email input here with the send button here. After that we have the discover our featured listing. We have these featured listings here where we have the featured product or featured houses here. Now the last thing is the footer. You can see this nice footer effect here. Also, another nice part of this website is it is responsive also. So let's go to the mobile view and you can see that it is responsive. When I click on this hamburger icon here, you can see our menu. When I click, it goes back. We still have our heading and the search input. Then we have our properties for rent. Then we have all the listings are in one column, and we have this grid area also which is responsive. You can see our grid. When I click on this and come on it, you can see this nice hover effect. Now let's go down and we have our support or contact area. Then we have our featured listings. Now below that we have our footer. So guys, this is the website we are going to build in this tutorial. If you like this project, please make sure you go to my website which is WP Codevo, and we have various projects here. You can go through each of them. For example, when I click on this, let me close this, you can see that we have complete responsive e-commerce website with HTML, CSS and JavaScript. We have some description of the project, the features, and we have a video here which is my own video which can guide you to how you can create this website. Now below that we have other description. Then we will have the image link where you can download the images if you want to code along. There is a place where I have the image there, I can't find it right now. So we have the subscribe button here. If you know you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Click here to subscribe to the channel. All right, let's get into the video. All right, on my desktop I have this folder with the name real estate, and within this folder we have a subfolder called images containing all the images you are going to use in building this website. I'll leave a link somewhere in the description where you can go to my website to download these images if you want to code along. Now let me go back and open the project with VS Code. You can use any text editor of your choice, but I'm going to use VS Code in this project. Now the first thing I'm going to do is to create two files, index.html and styles.css. Let's also create our JS folder, and within this JS folder let's create two files, slider.js and index.js. Now let's go back to our index.html and use shift exclamation sign to generate a boilerplate. Let's change the title to, let's say, real estate. Let's save this. Now what I'm going to do is to leave some comments stating the script you are going to include in this project. So here we need box icon. So box icons. We also need, let's say, font awesome. We need swiper. That's for the carousel. Now, okay, we also need our custom style sheet. So custom style sheet. Now before the ending body tag, let's also leave a comment swiper JS. We also need our script. Then in styles or CSS, we need fonts. Now let's go to our browser and search for box icon. So box icons, and let's choose the first link. Then here you go to usage, and from usage you click import CSS. Then copy this, go back to your project and paste it below the comment box icons. Save this. Now we need font awesome. So let's go back to the same browser again, then search for CDN JS, and here we can choose font awesome from here. So we need the all.min.css. Let's copy this, go back to our browser, let's start with a link, then paste it there. We also need our swiper.js, so let's go back to CDN.js again. So let's search for swiper.js. So we are going to need the swiper. We need swiper. So swiper. So let's click this one rather, not the other one. So we need the swiper bundle.min.js. So let's copy this and look for the corresponding CSS, swiper bundle.css. So let's copy this one also. Let's go back to our text editor, and here let's start with link. Then press Windows V to bring the clipboard. We need swiper bundle.css. We also need the script, so we start with script, the src one, then use Windows V again and choose swiper bundle.min.js. Save this. Let's include our custom scripts. So we need this. Let's enter into our JS folder and let's choose index.js. Copy this down using Shift Alt and the down arrow key. Let's change this to slider. Then let's include our custom style sheet. So we say link, then we enter. Okay, that's in the root, so styles.css. Alright, let's close this and close this. Now what I want to do is to write down some. Okay, we need our font, so let's go to the browser and let's search for Google Fonts. Then choose the first link, and in this project I'm going to use Roboto. So I'm going to choose 100. We need the 10. We also need 300. We need the regular. We also need 500 and 700. So let's copy the import. We are going to copy only this, excluding the style elements. Go back to our text editor and paste it here. Now let's save this. Below that, we are going to write some reset CSS code. So first, let's include our colors. So we say color variables. Then we use the root selector. So we say root. Then in here we start with our white color. Then let's say FFF. We also need our black color. So black. We are going to use 222. We also need green. So we are going to say CSCBE, then 02. We're also going to use gray 1. So let's say F0. Then gray 2. We're going to use E9, D7, then D3. Let's save this. Now let's write some basic reset. So basic reset. So we are going to select all our elements using the universal selector. We need it before. So let's choose after first, then it before. And let's give the margin 0, then padding 0. Let's set box sizing to inherit. Now let's select our HTML and let's give it box sizing of border box. Then font size should be 62.5%. Now let's select our body and set font family to Roboto. So body, then font family should be Roboto and sans serif. Then let's set our font size to 1.6 rem. Then background color should be white or white. Then let's set color to our black color, so we say black. Then font weight should be 400. Font weight should be 400 and font style should be normal, so style should be normal. Now let's select all our links. So all our links, let's give them text decoration of none and color of our black color, but we can say inherit, so this will inherit the color from the body. Then let's select all our LIs and give them style, list style of none. Then our images, let's give them a width of 100%, so width of 100%. Then let's write some custom class called container, so this is for our container, and let's give it max width of, let's say 114 rem, then margin of 0.3 rem, then let's set padding to 0.3 rem. Then let's create another custom class d-flex and let's give it display of flex, then align items of center. Now let's leave a comment for our header, so we are going to say header. Let's save this, go back to our index.html and leave a comment here, header. Now let's open the project with live server, so I'm going to click go live, or you can use Alt LO. So let's use Alt LO and this will open our browser. So this is the project. Let's go back to index.html. Below the header comments, let's start with the header tag, and it should have a class of header, and within this let's have our navigation div, and within the navigation div let's start with nav center, and let's also give it a class of container and also d-flex. Now within the nav center let's have our logo with a class of logo. Then within this logo let's have an h1 with a text rent. Below the logo let's have our ul with a class of nav list and also a class of d-flex. Then within the nav list let's have our li with a class of nav item, and within the nav item let's also have our nav link, so we start with our link tag. Then let's give it nav link class, and let's copy this down 3 times or 4. Then the first link should have home, the second should have, let's say, shop, the third should have, let's say, terms, the fourth should be about, and the fifth should be contact. Let's save this. Now below the URL let's have our hamburger, so hamburger. Then within this let's have our icon, so we start with I, then bx.bx dash menu, and we want the alt also. Okay, that's it. Let's save this, go to our browser, and we don't have our icon, so I think let's add left. Then let's go back to our browser, and now we have our icon. In order to get this icon you have to go to box icons, so box, you search for box icons, then you choose the first link, and here you can search for menu. So this is the one we are using, menu alt left. You can click on it, scroll down and choose font, then copy this. Let's close this. Go to your text editor and paste it within the hamburger div. Now let's go to our styles.css and start writing some styles for the navigation. First, we start with our header class. So let's select our header and let's give it position of relative. Then min height should be, let's say, 100 VH. Let's put this here, and below that let's have our overflow horizontal. Let's change it to heading. Then let's also give it z index of 0. Now let's leave a comment of navigation. Then below this, let's select our navigation class, navigation, and let's give it position of relative, z index of 2, and let's give it height of, let's say, 6 rem. Then line height should be 6 rem also to center it. Now let's select our nav center and let's give it justify content of space between. Now our logo, let's give it a color of black, but when we start with our carousel, then we'll change the colors to white. But first, let's give it black in order to see it. Then let's select our nav item. So nav center, we want our nav item and not last child. So not last child. Let's give it margin right of 0.5 rem. Now let's select the links. So nav center, the spelling. Then let's select the nav link. So nav link, and let's give it font size of 1.8 rem. Padding should be 1 rem. Then color should be, let's give it black. Later we'll change it to white. Now let's select our nav link again, and when we hover over it, let's give it some color. So let's copy this and paste it down here. So hover and let's give it color of our green color, green. Then the last thing we have to do is to select our hamburger. So hamburger, and let's give it display of none. Also let's set the font size to, let's say, font size to 2.3 rem, and color should be, let's say, our black color, and let's set cursor to pointer. So cursor pointer. Let's save this, go to our browser, and we have our hamburger here, but it seems the class is wrong, so nothing is taking effect. Hamburger, so the spelling here is wrong. Let's save this, go back to the browser again, and we have our nav links and the logo. Now the next thing to do is container. Here the class is correct. Let me inspect this before. Okay, I think we left out some class. Alright, there is some mistake with our container, so go to the top here. Here we give container left and right should be 3 rem. It should be auto rather. So that was a mistake, auto. Let's go back to our browser and we should see it in the center. Now let's go to our text editor again and let's write some media queries. So we say at media, and here should be max width of, let's say, 768 pixels. Let's select our nav list and let's give it position of fixed. Top should be 12%, then left should be -100%. Now go to your HTML and add open to open. Let's add a class of open to the nav list. Then I'll go back, and here below that let's have flex direction to be column, not content, column. Let's also set align items to flex start. Then box shadow, let's give it 5 pixels. So here is 5 pixels, 5 pixels, 5 pixels, then 10 pixels, and RGBA 000 point, let's say 2. Now let's also give it background color of white, so white, and let's give it height of 100%, width of 0, and let's set max width to 35 rem and z-index to z-index. Let's give it, let's say 100, and let's give it transition of, let's say, all 300 milliseconds, then is in and out. Now when nav list has a class of, so nav list has a class of open, let's set left to 0 and width to 100%. Let's go to our browser and let's resize this to mobile view, and we have our nav list. Now let's give our nav list, and within the nav list let's choose a nav item. Let's give it margin of, let's say 0, 1 rem and 0. Then let's give it width of 100%, width of 100%. Now let's select our nav link, so nav dash link. But before that, let's get our nav list first, then we want the link in it, and let's give it font size of 2 rem, font size of 2 rem, and color should be black. So later we will change it to white when we add the carousel. Then nav center, and let's select our hamburger. Now let's give it display of block, so display of block, and let's give it color of white and font size of, let's say 3 rem. But first let's change it to black, then later we'll change it to white in order to see the hamburger. So we have our hamburger, our logo, and the nav list. Now let's go to our index.js and add the toggle class to nav list. So first we select hamburger, we use document.query selector, and we choose the hamburger class. Let's also select our nav list, and here we see document.query selector, our nav list. So we see nav dash list. Then if we have hamburger, then we want to add class list, and let's toggle the class of open, so open. Then go to your index.html and remove this class of open. Now go back to your browser and let's refresh. It already has the class of open. Let's see. So first let's go to our nav list. Here we are setting the left to 0, so here left is negative 100%, and here when nav list has a class of open, so let's see. Okay, we are doing some mistake here. Let's cut this and let's add an event listener to the hamburger, and here when we click, so when we click, then we want to call our callback function. Then let's paste the nav list.classList.toggle open. Now go back to your browser and click this, and we have our nav list. When you click, it goes back. When you click, it comes in. Now the next thing to code is the hero area, which includes the carousel. So let's go to our text editor and let's close this, and let's go to our index.html. Before the ending body tag, let's leave a comment of hero. So this should be hero. Then below that, let's start with a div of hero, and let's go to our browser and search for swiper. So swiper, I can't even type swiper JS, and click on demo. Wait for it to load. Scroll down and choose. We have different slides here. We have navigation, default, we have pagination, we have different slides here, but what you're going to use is the navigation one. So go to the top and choose, click on core and wait for it to load. Now scroll down and copy this HTML code here, which is for the swiper. So let's copy this, close this, and close this also. Let's also close this and this also. Now let's go to our text editor and paste it within the hero, and let's remove this code here. Then for the first slide, let's put our image there. We want, so let's go into our images folder and pick image 1. Then let's copy this down 3 times and change the 2 to 1 to 2. Here should be 5 and here should be 6. Let's save this, and within the button, then next and previous button, let's have our icon here. So we start with I with a class of bx.bx-chevron. So, and we want the right. Also, let's give it another class of, let's say, swiper icon. Then let's copy this, paste it within the previous button, and change the right to left. So this right, let's change it to left. Let's save this, go to our browser, and we have our image with our icon here. So now it needs some styling, so let's go to our styles dot. But before that, let's write the JavaScript for the slider in order for it to work. So go to your slider.js and start with const. Then we want swiper, so just give it a name, and let's choose new. Also, we need to change this class here, which is my swiper. We need to give it our own class. So, or you can leave it that way, but I'm going to give my own class. So hero slider. Let me save this. Go to slider.js and let's first begin with swiper. We call it, the first thing is to select our class, which is hero slider, and the second is an object. So let's say space between, so between should be 30, and let's also say slides per view. So slides per view should be 1, and let's give it loop, so loop of true. Also, let's give it auto play of an object, and we say delay should be, let's say, 2500, and let's give it disable, let's say, on interaction. So interaction, the spelling interaction, and let's set it to false. So disable on interaction. Now the next is to give it an effect. So let's give it a fade effect. You can get all of this from the documentation. So let's start with our navigation, and let's select our next EL, and let's give it that class, this class, the next EL. This is a class for the next EL, and let's paste it here. Then let's copy this down and change next to previous, so prev. say priv. Let's save this, go back to our browser, and you should see that the carousel is working. Now let's go back to our text editor and go to styles.css, and let's write down some code for the hero. So first, let's leave a comment of hero, and let's start with our hero class. Let's also select our hero slider, the custom class that we added, and let's give it position absolute. Top should be 0, left should be 0, and width should be 100%. Also height should be 100 vh. Now let's select the image in the hero. So hero, I want the image. Let's give it height of 100%, so 100%. Let's give it width of 100% and object fit of cover. Now let's select our swiper next button. So let's copy this, then go back to, let's close this slider.js and paste it here. We want it after. Let's paste it again. It should be a class, and let's change this to previous. So priv, let's move this, then we want it after also. Now let's give it content of an empty string, and that should do away with their own. So now we have our own icon here. So when you give it that class, it removes their icon. Now let's go to our text editor, and let's select our next button and give it right of -50 pixels. Then let's also select our previous button and give it negative, so the previous. So let's change this to priv. Let's give it left of -50%. Now when we hover over the header, so hover, then we want our next and the previous should have right and left of their respective values. So this should be right to 40 pixels. Then let's copy this down, and let's change the next to previous. So here should be priv, and we want this to be left of 40. And now let's select our buttons again. This time let's select the two together. Let's change this to priv, and let's give them background color of RGBA. Let's say 0.8. So 0.8. Let's give them border radius of 50%. Then padding should be, let's say 0.5 rem, then 2.3 rem. Let's set transition to all 500 milliseconds, is in and out. Now let's select our swiper icon. So swiper dash icon, and let's give it font size of 5 rem. Font size of 5 rem. Then let's go to our browser, and we have this. We can also switch. So we have this. Let's see this. Let's remove this. Move this. So let's go back to our text editor and go to our index.html, and below the hero let's have our content. So we start with a div of content, and within this let's have an h1 with a text, find your dream home, not house, home. Then let's give it a paragraph, but not paragraph. So let's start with a div. So we want a search, so a div with a class of search, and within this div let's have an input and a button. So input and a placeholder. The placeholder should be, so placeholder should be, let's say type address, then comma, let's say city, then let's say state. Now below the input, let's have a button with a text of search. Let's save this, go back to our browser, and you will see no effect. That's because we've positioned this image over that. So let's go to our styles.css and write some code for the content. So we select our header and let's select content. Within this, let's give it position of absolute, and top should be 50%. Also let's set left to 50%, then transform, translate, negative 50%, negative 50%. Now let's set width to 80%. So width should be 80%. 80. Then let's also give it z index of 1 to bring it on top. Let's give it text align of center. Now let's select the h1 in the content. So we need the h1. Then let's give it font size of, let's say 7 rem. Then color should be white. Also let's give it margin bottom of, let's say 4 rem. Now let's select the search. So let's say header, and we want the search. Let's give it width of 70 rem, and let's set margin to 0 and auto. And let's give it padding. So padding of, let's say 1 rem, then 2 rem. Let's set background color to RGBA, let's say 0.6. So 0.6. Let's give it display of flex, so dflex. Align item center, justify content center. Now let's select the input in the search. So let's copy this. We want the input in the search, so input. Let's give it width of 100% and padding to, let's say 1.5 rem, then 0. Let's also give it text indent of 1 rem, then font size to 1.6 rem, and let's give it margin right of 1 rem, then outline to none and border to none. Now let's select the button in the search. So let's give it display inline block, padding to 1.5 rem and 4 rem, then background color to our green color. Then let's give it text color of white, so color of white. Also let's set border radius to, let's say 0.5 rem. Let's go back to our browser, and we have our search, our input, and the button, and our h1. Now let's go to our styles.css and write some styles for the media query. So media, and we want max width to be 996 pixels. Now let's select our h1 and give it font size of, so, but let's go and copy this. So where is the h1? This is the h1. Or let's copy the whole thing. Go here, paste it here. Let's change the font size to 5 and margin bottom to 2. And let's move the text color. Now let's select our search. So we see header, and we want the search. And let's give it width of 100%. Now let's select the input in the search. So let's copy this. We want the input in the search, so input, and let's give it padding of 1 rem and 0. Also, let's give it font size of, let's say, 1.3 rem. Then let's select the button in the search. So let's copy this. We want the button in the search, and let's give it padding of 1 rem. Now let's go and select our previous, and so the hover one, this. Also let's select, okay, let's select this first. Let's go to our media query, paste it here, and change the values to 5 pixels. So here we want 5 pixels, not that. Alt and click 5 pixels. Then let's select our icon. So let's say swiper dash icon, and let's give it font size of 3 rem. Now for our previous end, so let's copy this, paste it here, then let's paste it again. So let's copy this previous, and let's give them padding of 0.2 rem and 2.3 rem. Okay, I think there is a mistake here. So copy this, that's up to the search, copy this and paste it here, and close the curly brace. So this is for 996 and this is for 567. So for 567, we select our H1 again and give it font size of 3 rem, and the bottom should be 2, which is still the same. Then the search is 100, but for the 996, let's give it 50 rem. Now for the input, everything is correct below. So now let's go back to our browser and resize to mobile view. Now we have our search, our H1, our button and our input. The next thing is to start with this section, which is properties for rent. We have this grid layout here. So let's go to so let's close this and close this also. Then let's change the colors first. Let's change the colors of these links here. Let's change their colors. We made it black in order to see them well. So let's go to the top navigation. Let's change this to white. Also let's change the link to white. Then at the top here, hamburger, I think we've made it white. So let's remove this class here, this property here, and for the link also, let's give it white. Then for the logo, let's give it white. Let's go back to our browser and they are white. So let's go to our text editor, and below that let's write some section. So let's say a comment of, let's say rent section, and here we are going to start with the section tag with a class of section. So section, and we want a class of section. Also let's give it another class of rent, and within this section let's start with our title. So we start with a div with a class of title, and within this let's have our H1 with a text of properties for rent. Let's go to our browser and copy this text. I'm going to copy this text. Where is it? Let me copy this text because I don't want to type plenty. And let me go back to my text editor and paste it here. So we start with our paragraph, then let's paste it within. Now let's, below the title, let's start with a class of rent center. Also you should have secondary class of container. Then within this, within rent center, let's have our box. And within box, let's have top and bottom. So copy this down and change the top to bottom. Then within the first one, let's have an overlay, which is a div. And within this, let's have our image. We enter into images and choose pick one. Then below the overlay, let's have a div called post. Then within this, let's have our span with the text featured. So featured. Then let's copy this down and change this text to buy. Then within the bottom, let's have a paragraph. So paragraph with a text of, let's say, luxury villa in Las Vegas. So Vegas. Then below this paragraph, let's have an empty div. And within this div, let's have a span with maybe any price. So you can put any price there. Then underneath the span, let's have another span. And this should contain an icon, the I icon. So we start with I, far.fa-I. Let's save this, go back to our browser, and we should have our image, the title, and the bottom div. Now let's go back and go to our styles.css and start writing some styles for it. So we are going to select the section first, but before that, let's leave a comment of, let's say, rent properties. Then within that, let's have, or underneath that, let's have our section class, padding of 10 rem, top and bottom. Then left and right should be 0. Let's now select section again, and if section has a class of rent, let's give it background color of, let's say, F0, F4, F7. Now below that, let's select our rent center and let's give it display of grade. Then grid template columns, let's give it repeat, and let's set this to auto fill. It should be double L, and let's say min max to 25 rem, then 1 fr. Let's save this. Let's give it a gap of, so gap of, let's say, 4 rem and 2 rem. Let's go to our browser and we have our box. Now let's start the title. So we start with title. Let's give it text align of center. Then let's give it margin bottom of, let's say, 5 rem, then padding of 1 rem. Now let's select the H1 in the title. So we say title and we want the H1. Let's give it font weight of, let's say, 100. Then font size to 6 rem. Let's also set margin bottom to 1 rem. So margin bottom of 1 rem. Now let's select our box. So we select our rent class and we want the box. Let's give it transition of all 300 milliseconds, then ease in and out. And let's give it background color of white. So background color of white. Then when we hover over the box, so hover, not that, hover. Let's give it box shadow. So box shadow of 0.5 pixels, 5 pixels, RGBA of 0.2. Now let's select the top. So let's say rent box. Then we want the top in the box. Let's give it padding of 1 rem. Then position to relative, not padding, so position relative. And let's give it height of 20 rem. Now let's select, not select, transition. Let's give it some transition. So let's copy this and paste it here. Now when we hover over the box, we want the top. So when we hover over the box, so hover, let's give the top cursor of pointer. Now let's select the image in the top. So let's copy that and paste it here. We want the image in the top. Let's give it height of 100% and object fit of. So object fit of cover. Now let's select the overlay in the top. So overlay. So let's say box, and we want the overlay. And let's give it position of absolute. Then let's give it top of 0 and left of 0, padding to 1 rem, then background color to white, and let's set height to let's say 20 rem and width to 100%. Now let's select the overlay again, and we want it after. So let's paste this here. We want it after content to empty string, position absolute. We want top to be 0, left to be 0. Let's give it background color of RGBA 0.2. Also let's give it height of 100%, so 100, and width to 100%, then opacity to 0, and let's set visibility to hidden. And also let's give it some transition. So let's go to the top here and copy this transition, go down here and paste it here. Now when we hover over the top, so let's copy this top here and paste it below. When we hover, then we want the overlay, and we want it after to have opacity of 1 and visibility of visible. Let's save this, go back to our browser, and let's try that. Now we get that overlay. Now let's go to our text editor, and now let's select the rent again. We want the box, but in the box we want the post, this post class. So let's select the post, and let's give it position of absolute, and top to let's say 2 rem, then left to 2 rem also. Now let's select the span in the post. So let's copy this down, copy this class and paste it below here, and let's select the span. Let's give it display inline block, then font size to let's say 1.3 rem. Let's give it color of white, and let's give it margin right of let's say 0.5 rem, then padding to let's say 0.3 rem, then let's give it let's say border radius of let's say 0.3 rem. Now let's close this gap here. Then below that, let's select the first span. So let's paste this here. I want first child, and let's give it background color of 443 C3 70, and let's copy this down and change the first to last, so last child, and let's change the color also to E0203B. Now let's go to our browser, and we have our post span. Now let's go to our text editor also, and let's start with the bottom. So rent, we want the box, then we want the bottom, so bottom, and let's give it padding of let's say 1.5 rem. Then let's select the paragraph in the bottom. So let's copy this, let's copy it rather, and paste it here. Paragraph, let's give it font size of, let's say 2 rem, then font weight to, let's say 500, then color should be 555, and cursor to pointer. Then let's give it some transition, so let's go to the top here and copy that transition, then go and paste it there. Now let's select the div in the bottom, so let's copy this and paste it here. We want the div, and let's give it display of flex, then justify content of space between, and let's give it align items of center and margin top of 1 rem, and let's also give it color of, let's say 555. Now let's select the span in the div, so let's paste it here, and we want the span, let's give it font size of 1.8 rem. Now when we hover over the box, so when we say, sorry, when we hover, we want to select the bottom, and we want the paragraph, let's give it color of, let's say 006EFF. Then let's select the icon in the div, so let's go and copy this and paste it here, and we want the icon in the div, let's give it font size of, let's say 2.5 rem. Now let's go to our browser, and we have our icon, we have our paragraph also, and the price. So let's go to our text editor, go to index.html. we are going to copy this box down 7 times, so copy this box like this. So we need a box, use Shift Alt and the down arrow key, copy down 7 times, so 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, and now change the images randomly. So here you can make it 5, here let's make it maybe 2, here let's make it maybe 3 or 5, let's give it 3, here let's make it maybe 1, here should be, let's check the images, how many images we have there, they pick 1 up to 6, here should be, so here let's make it 6, here to maybe 4, then here 1, here 1 again, so let's change this to, let's say 3, then here 1, here 1, so let's change this to, let's say 6. Let's go to our browser, and we have all our houses, so let's go to our text editor again. So let's go to our text editor, and let's write some media queries. So go to styles.css, then here we start with at media, we want media, and max width to be, let's say 768 pixels, and we are going to select the title and give it, let's say font size of 4 rem. So let's select the title, so we say title, and let's select the H1, let's give it font size of 4 rem. Now let's copy this down and change the value to 567, so 567, and let's change the 4 rem to, let's say 3. So let's go to our browser, let's resize this, and we have, okay, everything is correct. Now let's check the next thing on the list. Let's see, we have this grid area here, this nice grid area here, so popular properties, these are the grid area. So let's go to our text editor, and let's go to index.html. below the section tag, let's leave a comment of, let's say grid, so grid properties. Then I'm going to start with a section with a class of section, so section with a class of section. Then let's also give it another class of grid layout, so grid dash layout, and within this let's have our title. So title, and this title we need only the h1. Let's put popular. So popular properties. Let's save this, and below this title let's have our wrapper. So we say wrapper class. So wrapper, let's also give it a class of container, and within this let's have some box. So box, and also this will have another class of box1. Then let's start with our image. We want image 4, so pick 4. Let's copy this down, let's say 3 times, change this to 2, and the picture to, let's say, vertical. So vert 3, and the third one change the 1 to 3, and the pick to 1, and the fourth one change it to 4, and the pick to 3. Save this, go to your browser. So let's scroll. These are our images. Now let's go to styles.css and write some styles for the grid. So go to styles.css, and let's first leave a comment of, so let's leave a comment of grid properties. So properties, then we're going to select our wrapper. So let's select our wrapper, and let's give it display of grid, and grid gap of, so gap of, let's say, 10 pixels. Then let's also give it grid template columns of repeat, then 1 fr. No, first 3 times, and we want 1 fr. Now let's select the box in the wrapper. So we say, let's say wrapper, then we want the box, and let's give it border radius of, let's say, 5 pixels, and let's also set overflow to hidden. Now let's select the image in the wrapper. So we want the image, let's set height to 100%, then object fit to cover, let's set some transition. So transition, then we want all 500 milliseconds ease in and out. Now when we hover over the box, so copy this down, when we hover, we want the image in the box to have a transform scale. We want scale of 1.1. and now let's select the individual boxes. So we want this, so copy this down, paste it here, and change to 1. We want grid column, so grid column, let's say 1, and we want it to span 2 times. Then let's give it height of 35 rem. Now let's copy this down 3 times, then change the box. So this one, let's change to 2, and for the column we want only 3 here, so 3, and the row, we are going to need a row here, so grid row, and let's say 1, then let's span, let's say 2. Let's remove the height, and the next one should be the 3, the third box. Let's give it, here should be 1, and here to 2. Then the fourth box, let's give the grid column of, let's say 2, and the row, so here let's remove this, the third one should be grid row, so row, and let's give it 2. Then copy this down and paste it here. Now let's go to our browser, and we have our grid column. What is left is a media query. So let's go to our text editor again. Say at media, and we say max width. Let's start with 768 pixels. Then let's copy box 1 and box 2. So box 1 and box 2, and paste it here. And let's change this span to 3 and the height to 20 rem. Box 2, let's give it 3 too, so there should be only 2. And let's give it a height of the same height. So let's copy this and paste it here. Now let's copy this media query here and paste it below that, and change the value to 567. So 567. Let's close the curly brace, and let's give the wrapper. So let's select the box. Let's give it, so all the box, let's give them height of, let's say 15 pixels, not pixels, 15 rem. Let's save this, go back to our browser, and let's resize this to mobile view. And now we have our grid, this nice grid. The next thing is to have this contact section area. So this contact section area where we have an input here and some text and a button. So let's go to our text editor, and let's leave a comment here of contact. So contact. Now for the contact, let's start with a section. So section, and let's also give it a class of section and another class of contact. Then within this, let's have a row, and within this row, let's have core. So it will be 2. So let's copy this core down again. The first one, let's have an h2 with a text of, let's say, excellent. So let's go to the website and copy the text. I don't want to type, so copy this and copy this also. Then go back to my text editor, and within the h2, press Windows V and paste this. Then Control spacebar, and underneath that, let's have a paragraph. Windows V again and paste the paragraph. So below the paragraph, we're going to have a button, so btn, with a class of, so with a class of btn, and we also want another class of btn-1. And within this, let's write contact. Then within the second column, let's have a form. We don't need the action. Then within this form, let's have a div, and within the div, let's have an input with a type of email. Then placeholder, let's set it to email, let's say address. Then underneath the input, let's have a button again, let's say send. Now let's go to our browser, and let's close this and close this also. And now we have our left column and the right column. So let's go to our styles.css and start writing some code for the contact. So you're going to start with a comment of, let's say, contact. Then let's select our contact class, and let's give it background color. So not background color, background. So background, we are going to set some image here, so URL, and let's enter into our images and look for pic 5. So pic 5, and let's also give it no repeat, and also let's make it fixed. Then let's give it some color of white, then padding to, let's say, 10 rem. So 10 rem, then 20 rem. Now let's select the row in the contact. So we want the row, and let's give it display of grid, then grid template columns of 1fr 1fr. Let's also set align items to center. Now let's select the h1 in the h2 rather, the h2 in the first column. So let's say call, and we want the h2. Then let's give margin bottom of 1.5 rem, and let's also set font size to 3 rem. Let's copy this down for the paragraph. Now for the paragraph, so let's change the h2 to the p tag. For the paragraph, let's set font size to 8, so 1.8. Then here we are going to font size rather, so let's change, we want margin bottom to be 2 rem, so 2 rem, font size to 1.8. then width to 70%, so width we want 70%. Now let's select our button, so we say btn-1, and let's give it background color of our green color, so green. Then let's give it a color of white, and also let's set display to inline block. Then border radius to, let's say 1 rem. Then font size to let's say 1.8 rem. Also let's set padding to 1.5 rem, then 5 rem. Now let's select the div in the form, so we say contact, and we want the form. Then let's get the div from the form. Let's give it position of relative, and margin, let's give it margin of 0, so 0 and auto. Now let's get the input from the form, so this input from the form, we want the input, and let's give it font family of Roboto, so Roboto. We also want sans serif, and here let's set text indent to 2 rem, and font size to 1.8 rem. Also let's give it width of 100%, so 100%. Let's give it border radius of 1 rem, and padding to 2 rem, then 0. Let's also set outline to none, so here should be none, and border to none. Now for the button, let's get our form again. So we want the button, so position to absolute. Let's give it top of 0, left to right, right, can't even type, right of 0. Then background color to our green color. Then let's give it color of white, and let's give it margin of 0.5, so 0.5 rem. Then padding to 1.7 rem, and 5 rem. Now let's set border radius to, let's say 1 rem. Let's save this and go to our browser, and we have our input and our button here in our text. So let's go to our text editor and write some media query. So we say at media, and we want max width to be 996, so 996 pixels. And here we are going to select our contact, and let's give it, so we want our contact, and let's give it padding of 8 rem on all sides. Let's copy this down 2 more times, change this to 768, and we want the row in the contact, so row, and let's give it grid, let's say grid template columns of, let's say 1 fr, we want only 1 column, and let's give it gap of 5 rem and 0. Then let's change this value to 567, and let's get our contact again, but this time we are going to give left to right to be 1 rem. Now let's go to our browser and resize this to mobile view, scroll down, and now we have our left column and the right column. Now the next thing is to code this, discover our featured listing. this, you have to just copy this here and paste it and change the text. So let's go to our text editor and go to our section, which is the rent section, and copy everything here to the last section tag. So up to here, copy it, go down below the contact and remove 4 of this here. So let's remove up to here and see. So we need to change the images randomly. Let's say 2 here to, let's say 4 here to, let's say 6, and we need 1 again. So let's copy this box down. It seems there is some mistake somewhere because you need this center. So there is some mistake. Let's undo this. Undo. Let's undo. Okay, now let's paste it and remove from here. So this is a box. So let me remove, let me say up to here for now, and change the images to, let's say here 3, then here to 6, then here to, let's say 1, then here to, let's say 4. And for the text, let's go to our browser, and here I'm going to copy this text and copy this one also. Then go back to my text editor, use Windows V and paste the heading, and for the paragraph, let's highlight this, Windows V, and paste this also here. Now let's save this, go back to our browser and close this, and we have our discover our featured listing. Now what is left is our footer. So let's go to our text editor. So our text editor, below the featured listing, let's leave a comment of, let's say footer. Now let's start with the footer tag. So let's say footer, and we want the class of footer. Now within this, let's have a div with a class of row. So within this div, let's have core with secondary class of dflex. So the first column we are going to have, let's say, so let's copy this down 2 times. The first column we are going to have an h4 with a text of information. Then underneath the h4, let's have our links. The first one is about us. Copy this down, then change this to contact. Then the third link to, let's say, terms and conditions. So terms and conditions. Then the last one to shipping. So let's say shipping guide. Now for the second column, I'm going to start with an h4 again with a text of useful. So let's say link, so useful, I don't know if it's this one L, useful. Then for the link, we are going to have online, let's say store. Then let's copy this down and let's change the second one to, let's say custom, so customer services. Then the third one should have promotion. Then the last one, let's say top brands, so top, let's say brands. Now the last one, we're going to have some icons there. So the first one, let's start with a span. The first one is bi, so bx.bxl dash facebook. Then we want the square. Let's copy this down, and the second one, we're going to have Instagram. So let's remove this, and here will be Instagram. And for Instagram, we want the alt. Then for the third, we want GitHub. so GitHub. And for the fourth one, we want Twitter, so we want Twitter. And for the last one, let's have Pinterest. So let's save this, go to our browser, and we should have our links and our icons. Let's go to our styles.css and write some styles for the footer. So let's leave a comment of, let's say, footer. Then we're going to select the footer class, so let's say footer, and let's give it padding of 7 rem, then 1 rem. Now below that, let's give it some background color. So yeah, yes, use background. Then let's say 303441. Now let's select the row in the footer. So footer, we want the row. Then here we're going to say this display to grid, and grid template columns to, let's say, repeat 3 times. We want 1 FR. Then let's set margin, not margin, max width. So max width to, let's say, 99. So 99.6 rem. Then let's give it margin of 0 or 2. Now let's select the column in the row. So we want the column, and let's give it flex direction of, let's say, column. Then let's give it color of white. Then let's also give it align items of flex start. Now the last column, so the last column, let's select the last child. So let's say flex direction to row and justify content to center. Now let's select the span in the last column. So the span in the, so all the spans which are our icons, we want font size to be, let's say, 2.5 rem, and margin right, let's set it to, let's say, 0.5 rem. Then color, let's set it to white. And now let's select our links in the columns. So let's say our links, let's give them color of, let's say, white. Then let's give them font size of 1.5 rem. Then let's also give them padding of 0.5 rem. And also let's set font weight to 300. So 300. Now let's select the H4 in the column. So we want the H4. Do we have an H4 in the column? H4. Yeah, H4. And let's give them margin bottom of 1 rem. Now let's go to our browser, and we have our links and our icons. Now let's see, let's write some media query, just some short media query, just one media. Then we want max width to be 567. Let's select our footer, and we want our row. Let's give it grid template columns of grid, not auto, so grid template columns of, let's say, 1 FR, which is 1 column, and let's give it row gap of, let's say, 3 rem. Let's save this, go back to our browser, and let's resize to mobile view, and let's check our footer, and everything is in place. And this is the end. Okay, so guys, if you like this website and you like this video, please go to my website, and you go to my website, which is WP Codevo, and at the right side here you will see a subscribe button. Just click on it. It is loading. I've lazy load the button, so it takes time to come. If you haven't subscribed, just subscribe here, or go to my channel and subscribe there.